5 years ago, you had 1,000 in your bank account. You did nothing reckless. You didn't gamble it away. You didn't invest in something shady. You just left it there. Today, you still see 1,000 on the screen. Same number, same digits. But it quietly buys less food, less fuel, less future. And here's the uncomfortable part. Nobody stole it. Nobody hacked you. The system did exactly what it was designed to do. So why does your money lose value even when you do nothing wrong? Let's start with something simple. Money feels solid, physical, stable. But modern money is not gold. It's not even paper, really. It's a promise. A promise issued by governments and managed by central banks. In the United States, that's the Federal Reserve. In India, it's the Reserve Bank of India. In Europe, the European Central Bank. Different names, same core power. They control how much money exists. And here's the first twist. More money is constantly being created. Not printed in trucks every morning. That's the dramatic version. In reality, most new money is created digitally when banks issue loans. You go to a bank, you borrow 10 lakh for a home. The bank doesn't slide existing cash from a vault across the table. It types numbers into your account. New money appears. Multiply that across millions of loans, homes, cars, businesses, credit cards, and the total money supply grows. More money in the system. Now imagine a small village with 100 apples and 1,000 total rupees in circulation. On average, each apple costs 10 rupees. Suddenly, the money supply doubles to 2,000 rupees, but there are still only 100 apples. What happens? Prices rise. Maybe apples go to 20 rupees. You still have your 1,000 rupees, but instead of buying 100 apples, you now buy 50. Nothing was taken from you, but your purchasing power was cut in half. That slow erosion is called inflation, and central banks don't just tolerate it, they target it. Around 2% per year in many developed economies, sometimes more. 2% sounds harmless, almost polite. But here's the math no one emphasizes. At 2% inflation, your money loses about half its purchasing power in roughly 35 years. At 5%, it shrinks much faster. That means if you save cash under your mattress, or even in a low-interest account, time becomes the thief, and time never gets tired. Now let's escalate this. Why would governments allow inflation at all? Why not just freeze prices forever? Because inflation has a side effect. It makes debt easier to handle. Imagine you borrow 1 million at a fixed rate. Over time, as prices rise and wages climb, that 1 million feels smaller relative to your income. Inflation silently reduces the real weight of debt. For households, that can be helpful. For governments, it's powerful. Countries operate with massive debt, trillions, numbers so large they feel abstract. If inflation runs higher than expected, the real value of that debt shrinks. In other words, inflation can function like a quiet tax. You don't receive a bill, you just notice your money buys less. And that's where the irony sets in. You're told to save responsibly, be prudent, avoid risk. But holding pure cash long-term guarantees a slow decline in purchasing power. Doing nothing wrong becomes a losing strategy. Now let's zoom into a specific moment. In 2020, during the global pandemic, governments around the world injected enormous amounts of money into their economies. Stimulus checks, emergency loans, asset purchases. Trillions created in a short time. At first, it felt necessary, urgent. But supply chains were disrupted, production slowed, goods became scarce. More money chasing fewer goods. Inflation surged. In the United States, inflation peaked above 9% in 2022. In many countries, food and energy prices spiked dramatically. People checked their grocery receipts and felt something was off. Same salary, higher bills. This is where hype meets reality. Hype says prices are going up. Let's address the uncomfortable question. Why not just keep inflation at zero? Yes, companies can raise inflation to turn into deflation. But under deflation, changes behavior forcing supply, demand, and money supply. People expect prices to fall tomorrow. Currency delays in circulation reduce the relative value of each one. They cut jobs. It's not personal. It becomes heavier than real terms. And here's the slowdown concern most people overlook. So policymakers' bank account shows nominal value. Too much inflation. Everyone's trust in money only.
Too little growth frees the economy percent interest, and in that inflation yields at 6% savings become collateral damage in real terms. There's another layer. The number grows, but its power and supply expands. It doesn't just flow into groceries, it's quietly speeding flows into assets. Remove real estate, stocks not getting ahead. Asset prices inflate. Let's address the people who own assets often see their wealth just keep inflation at zero. People who hold only cash. Because zero inflation can turn into deflation and inequality. And deflation seems to be behavior those who participate in assets. If people expect prices to fall in cash, they delay because they made a mistake. Businesses are because money itself is designed to move. Debt is designed to circulate term to be invested. Economic slowdowns conspire. Storing it is like storing ice in a walk a tightrope. It slowly melts. Too much inflation and trust in people. Holding cash flows can freeze the economy. No volatility. And in that market index, your savings become collateral damage. But inflation is volatility stretched over time. Assets less traumatic. When money supply expands, it doesn't just flow into groceries even further. It flows into distrust. Real estate, people, stocks, currency will hold value. Asset prices inflate in exchange for real people who own assets. Often see inflation rises too fast. People trust crime, cash fall behind. History has examples. This quietly determines inequality. Venezuela. The system rewards the extreme participation, destroy purchasing power, and terrifies who sit in cash. Most developed economies are nowhere near that level. But because of the principle is designed to move, value is not. It's designed to circulate. It is maintained through policy, discipline, and credibility. Storing windows while storing ice in weekends. So here we are else. You work, and yet for millions of people save, holding cash, still seeing quietly erode volatility. Not because you market swings, not because you're not responsible, but inflation. The system expands, stretches over time, targets dramatic, and uses time persistent. The real question isn't whether inflation exists. Money is trust. It's this. When people think money is designed to slow value, they accept what is exchange for to save for the future. When inflation rises too fast, and trust stands still. History has examples. Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, where extreme money creation destroyed purchasing power at terrifying speed. Most developed economies are nowhere near that level, but the principle remains. Value is not fixed. It is maintained through policy, discipline, and credibility. When those wobble, money weakens. So here we are. You worked, you earned, you saved, and still your money quietly erodes. Not because you failed, not because you were irresponsible, but because the system expands money supply, targets inflation, and uses time as a lever. The real question isn't whether inflation exists. It's this. If money is designed to slowly lose value, what does it actually mean to save for the future? And who really benefits from a currency that never stands still?